Hello, everybody. It is giveaway time here at Spark of Genius. I did allude to this on Twitter. We'd be doing a little giveaway. We don't have any new content creator kits, but myself and my co-creator, co-compatriot, co-commentator, co-caster in the wrong order have decided to give a little giveaway. So the giveaway will be the first 2 weeks of January, and what you have to do is you have to be a subscriber, like a video for the first 2 weeks of January, and comment either something that you're looking forward to in Flesh and Blood in 2023, and some kind of content that you want to see us create more of in 2023. And you will have a choice of, on my side, you have three. So we do have the Herald of Rebirth left. So we do have a red, yellow, blue Herald of Rebirth. On my side, we also have a triple cold foil cracked bubble for the holidays.
Very festive.
Very, very festive. And then we have a bit of an old school kind of thing. We have 4 non-foil promos from the original set. So
Those are
promo,
old.
They're very old.
One of the oldest promos
5, 6,
of the game.
7. Yeah, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So you get all 4 of those.
Fantastic.
What does Rob have?
On my side, well, I'm going to kind of copy you a little bit. I've got 3 more Herald of Rebirth extended arts. 1 of every pitch goes to 1 person. I've got 3 of the cold foil, I believe, Road to Nationals auras for Prism.
Ones.
Yeah, 1 of each goes to 1 person. And finally, a cold foil young Lexi that I got signed personally at Worlds by Federico Musetti. So, yeah, 3 prizes from me, 3 prizes from Eric.
Yep. If you will be called, we will do the spin as we do normally, and all you have to do is email us. Same stuff as before. Let us know, and we'll get those off to you ASAP. Appreciate everyone for their continued support of the channel. Hope everyone's looking forward to 2023 Fab. Bye for now. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Spark of Genius Flesh and Blood production. And we're here on tier list duty. As the seasons roll on and we come into the new year, we have to create another tier list. I mean, it's a tradition,
Of course.
And this one is going to be focusing on the Dynasty. I guess the Dynasty release for ProQuest January. So the 3 weeks in January to qualify for PT3. I am joined on the top, as you'll see, with the new templates. Of course, we have the giveaway going on. I'm not going to go too much into that. Everything's explained in the intro. But I am joined by my co-creator, co-commentator, co-caster, co-compatriot Rob on top. And then we have special guests, Yuki Lee Bender on the bottom, 2021 Canadian National Champ, 2022 semi-finalist, top 6. This is the new one, top 64 Worlds. This one hasn't been, I haven't used this one. This is a brand new one.
Yeah.
I got to say it. Top 8 calling at PT2, top 32 PT1. And I'm going to stop there. Very respectful this video, and we're going to be talking about the heroes as we come into the ProQuest season. Arakni being the new addition. We didn't include that before on the previous tier list with Frank back pre-Worlds. You'll see a little bit different of a tier list in front of you if you're watching on YouTube. Doesn't affect anyone listening on Spotify. However, the tier list site just broke, apparently. It just doesn't work for the regular images, so we are going to be using this. In the meantime, I do some editing afterwards. But this is the tier list that we had in the last video. So we're going to use that as like a baseline and move them around. And the only thing that would be affecting this are Worlds itself and the battle hardens that happen in between, and any kind of views we have in testing for these heroes in the Dynasty meta when Dynasty is legal. Of course, this is going to be before Outsiders comes out in March, so this has nothing to do with Outsiders and what we think future sets will have for these heroes. This is purely on what we have now for this season. And
Leading into ProQuest, right? So
leading into ProQuest, yeah. So I think we're going to start bottom up, right? I think that's
we'll
what
start
we
with
said.
the D tier, or as previously known as the meme tier.
Previously otherwise known as the meme tier. Levia. I don't know if I have anything to add with Levia. I think we had some new brood cards.
Yeah.
Not totally sure how impactful they are for Levia. I don't think they really changed much. I think there are some like nice additions in Brute in general. I just don't really think they were targeted for Levia. I don't know if Rob, you disagree, or Yuki, you've seen anything.
I just agree with you. I don't think the cards lended really to her playstyle. So yeah, mostly a Rhinar upgrade.
Yeah, same.
Yep.
Agreed.
Enough said.
Moving on.
Leave her in D
We'll leave
tier.
her in D. I apologize. We're gonna leave her to all the Levia fans out there. All 8 of you, I guess. We're gonna leave her there.
How about Katsu?
We should have renamed Katsu to Katsu, but
Too late.
the new line based on the Roaring Tiger. I've obviously you've seen me like fool around with it on the channel a bit. I've fooled around with it outside the
Yeah.
channel. Also, I've looked at different builds and such, and I've looked at kind of the matchups with and without the Roaring Tiger package. I think Katsu is still solidly a mid-range combo control deck. I think the problem with like comparing him to something like Fi is that he blocks better, which is good, but his ceiling is lower, which is bad. And Roaring Tiger is not Art of War. You need both Art of War and Roaring and Roar of the Tiger. I'm calling it Roaring Tiger. Roar of the Tiger to do anything, and needing one pitch for Art of War, but two cards to actually like get a realistic combo. It is the, how did Nia put it? Do they read deck? It's like you're asking your opponent to read, and if they can't read, you win.
Yeah.
But if they can read, you lose. And I feel comfortable saying that the literacy at a lot of these events is decently high. I don't know if it's that high. I think it's high enough. Yeah, maybe if I'm like styling on some like school children in like in like some kind of yard, maybe Yuki can take it to school and start beating students with Katsu. That should be an arc by itself. But I think that is what people were like leaning towards, is like the reinvention of Katsu for the meta. It's like, oh, we could do things. You play Blazing Yori for Fi, and you block Lava Burst, and you come back with like some Roaring Tiger Art of War, and then as you see in my games, you very rarely draw both together, crumbles. And even when you do, they don't work.
Yeah.
Fun deck. I personally don't see much reason to move him out of C unless Yuki or Rob have any different experiences with or against the deck.
Nothing to add here.
No, I think you play a bunch of cards that don't do anything on their own is the problem. And then when you put them all, like when you do draw them all together, they're still like, they can just block the Tiger Swipe and then you're sad. So it feels like when you go off and you do the thing, you're just doing a Fi combo. But then the rest of the time you have all these cards that don't do anything. And it's like, well, you could just play Fi.
You're just on mid-range Katsu. It literally just feels like mid-range Katsu. It's like, okay, but like this was getting eclipsed for a reason. Nothing really changed. I think you need more Crouching Tiger combo line cards. I think there's just too little. I don't want to be playing like, if that's the main combo line, give me some more cards in the main combo line. I don't want to be like not running at least 9 to 12 of that combo line, and below that is just like, why? Like Predatory Streak doesn't count. Predatory Streak is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like an attack action combo that actually does stuff. So I think Katsu will stay at a C.
Okay.
Move on to Boltyn here. So Rob, tell me a little bit about Boltyn. I know you've been playing some Boltyn.
I enjoy him now. I never played Boltyn before. Spirit of Arena is the new legendary that came out in Dynasty. This card, I think it does stuff. It's not a useless card. It allows Boltyn to not need to have that many cards in Soul to be able to pop off. So Boltyn, traditionally, you would go pretty slow turn to turn. You would charge a single card or two if you're lucky, and then hopefully have 3 cards in Soul by the time you draw double Lumina. So now what you could do is, even with a single card in Soul, you can have Spirit of Arena, and then you can play out 2 of your Lumina Ascensions, and then that'll give you actually 2 action points because they were played as instants. So you don't have to rely on the go again effect of Boltyn as much. So the net benefit is you can play this earlier, and I think as a combo deck that's quite useful. You do want to be able to play it when you have a higher life total, so you can take a turn off, take all the damage, and then swing back with your double Lumina, or hopefully triple Lumina turn. So I don't know if that changed him as much. It's definitely better. I think Boltyn got better with this card. The only issue is that it didn't really change his strengths and weaknesses. I think the same things that he was weak to remain constant, and the things he was good into, also remains constant. So those are my thoughts on Boltyn. I think he's quite fun, but I don't know if he got that much better.
That's fair. Yuki, what do you think? Are you bringing Boltyn to the Pro Quests?
I don't think so. Like, ultimately, it's just a one-of that you have to see. Like, you still have to draw it, and there's like some weirdness where it doesn't. If you put it into your soul, it like pops out. So like even though it kind of gives you an
You don't
action
really
point back,
yeah. It's like when
like
that
how much do you
happens, it's
save
like I
unless
don't
you're
really
playing
want
it?
like turn to turn when you want to like charge things in soul. You don't really want to charge that card because you wanted something in soul, right?
Like it's fine because it puts it onto the battlefield, I guess. But it's not. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
It's just okay.
you could tutor it with
Yeah, that
Oh man, that card.
the attack
A
reaction that buffs
beacon,
by X.
beacon of
Beacon of
victory.
Victory, that's it.
Beacon of Victory. Yes. So you can tutor it with Beacon of Victory, although usually you want to tutor Luminas, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't really know. There's it's a one of I guess if you get it early enough. I don't really have anything else
Yeah, I mean,
bad
if you draw it
going.
early, it's great. If you don't, it's kind of mediocre because you'd rather just pull out Lumina anyway. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know if he's changed in position on this tier list. I'm comfortable leaving him unless we see some other
Yeah.
hero later down the line that we think is worse than Boltyn. I think leaving him in C right now is okay.
Yeah, I think I
That's true.
agree. I think that ultimately, like, he just still really struggles into Iyslander. Because you're just setting up this combo, and then if they just channel like Frigid or Hypothermia, you just lose, and they can just kind of sit on it. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
it's
might
tough.
improve like the aggro matchup a bit because you can maybe get
Yeah.
lucky and pop off earlier, but other than that, I think he's pretty much the same.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, how about
that's
Kano,
fair.
Mr. Kano?
Yeah, Kano's got to move. I don't think he's C tier anymore. Now,
Yeah,
the thing with Dynasty is like generally Fab does pretty good at not power creep, not like enabling power creep. Like I think Flesh and Blood is very different from a game like Yu-Gi-Oh, which power creep is everything in that
everywhere.
game, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's literally everywhere, right? But I think Flesh and Blood has done a very good job in the fact that your Welcome to Wraith and Arc cards are still your gold standard, right? And you've like kind of they've developed cards set after set that have been able to like build different strategies and shape the meta differently, like think channel like Frigid and stuff like that, right? Um, and I think Kano is one of the unique examples where there was some pretty tangible power creep in Dynasty, and that he got straight upgrades in a bunch of different slots.
Mm-hmm.
Like he no longer has blank vanilla cards that have zero text the same way as he did before. Like he got an upgrade to Zap. He got an upgrade from the zero for three, the 1 for 4, and the 2 for 5s. Right. So he's just getting kind of stronger and stronger. And I think Kano is one of those decks where he has a very clear game plan. Like wildfire is wildfire, right? That hasn't changed. And I think
Yeah.
wildfire is extremely volatile to the point where you really only need like an epot to like kill your opponent turn 3, turn 4, pretty reliably. To be fair,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't always work. Like it depends whether you can either stack your blazing or you can combo it correctly to the point where you know exactly what's there. You could pitch stack for late. He's a very flexible deck, even though he does start at 30. However, I think I think the deck he preys on if they come out more ahead, I guess, and he doesn't just get beat down super early. I think he's still not. I guess I think the aggro race is funny. Like I think Fi into Kano is like super super close. Like Dash into Kano, same idea. Like decks that can go really really quickly can just kill him because he starts at 30. And if Kano doesn't hit Wildfire or Kano doesn't hit like those big racing tools, then he's in trouble. But I think he has good tools to race. That being said, it deserves more than a C in my opinion. I know Yuki's been playing some Kano, so I guess I'll throw it over to her. What do you think about Kano?
Yeah. I'm not sure how much the Surge stuff are all just strictly better versions, like the Ether Flare and Small Tidings and stuff. They're just like strict upgrades, so you put them in the deck for sure. I'm unsure how much it really matters in a traditional wildfire list. Like I didn't find it coming up that often, and sometimes even if I got the Ponder token off of Small Tidings, like I didn't necessarily want an arsenal in that spot. I might have already had one, so it's a little bit awkward there.
Mhm.
But I think you get 2 more of the 0 for 3 lines that you can include in
Yeah,
blue. Makes a pretty big difference. So I do think the deck got better, but I think that's tempered a little bit by Dash seeming to be pretty popular and doing pretty well at tournaments. Is just it's never been a great matchup for Kano, and
yeah,
I still don't think it is. Dash got some
yeah.
pretty good tools. We'll talk about that, but I think that kind of makes Kano still like an okay choice. He's very powerful when he does his thing. I think he could win an event, but I don't expect him to see widespread play, I guess.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's true. I was thinking I really like Aether Quickening too. I think it's a very cool card in
Yeah.
that, the action play. It's a different play style, and I think I haven't seen as many of the Blessing of the Aether. Blessing of yeah, Blessing of Aether. I have the card in front of me. I just already misspelled it. Blessing of Aether. I haven't really seen as many of those. I thought I'd see more play around that card, but maybe people are just like sticking with what they know. I mean, Wildfire is Wildfire. You do it on their turn, not your turn. But I think, yeah, I tend to agree that I don't think maybe he's in B tier.
Yeah, I
think
was gonna
C
ask.
is disingenuous.
We
Yeah,
could
I think
probably
my
bring
bottom
him.
of B is fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we'll eventually
I think, I
move
think
something down to C maybe.
the deck that got stronger, like objectively so. So I think moving him to B is fine. And then
Yeah.
where he's in B, we could talk about later.
Sounds good.
We're moving on to the Rangers. Yuki, this is your
Azalea.
forte. I've heard from many a fan this is the forte here. So let's start with the I don't think she's lesser known anymore, considering how much light is being shined on the pits here in the next set. But for now, we have Azalea. I know we we talked to Levi about this, did a deck tech. I don't think his deck changed that much either. His Battle Hardened Azalea top baited. And kind of goes to show she obviously Ranger was in Dynasty. She did get some pretty reasonable cards. Like not, I don't think they were all just fantastic. They did center around, the aim counters with Sandscour Great Bow being the thing that puts aim counters on, which I think you talked about it, of course, on the Bauble. I think also that it was just kind of a bit lackluster at the moment, but with more support can be quite strong. And let's dive into that a little bit more. Do you think like the new-ish Azalea builds are still kind of hovering around the B tier? Do you think they're gonna like really do well in the meta going into January? Or
no, I think it's still B tier. I think it's reasonable. The deck has some pretty good matchups into the aggro decks, and I imagine you can probably be pretty good into Dash. Like it seems like you could play Smashing Good Time pretty easily and just like dominate kills some items, which seems nice. So I think she has her good matchups, but she still struggles into like a defensive Oldhim deck, and she still struggles into Dromai. And I think that kind of stops her from being higher than B. She could be a good meta call if you really know your meta and you're expecting it to be all aggro. I think that's reasonable, and I think she's better than people think, but I don't think she's quite there yet. I think the new cards are really like Drill Shot is just an all-star because it kind of forces them to use their armor or commit extra cards. I think Deadeye's seeing play in Azalea just as a yellow block 3 that can also pump 3. And then I think Heatseeker's a good card. I don't know if it's in Levi's current build. I don't think so.
No, it's not.
But it's reasonable. I think Heatseeker is like one of the better gets from Dynasty. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Like I think Sandscour Great Bow is not that far off the Death Dealer variant. Like they feel kind of close, maybe just slightly worse, but with another set of support coming, and James White sort of alluding to the aim counters, then we could see it get there. I think that's not hard to imagine.
Yeah, he did just open his mouth, and Marvel Great Bows just spiked in price. So that's always fun for everyone looking at the market.
Yep. Okay, cool. So we'll leave her there. No, I don't play Azalea, so I'll defer to the experts on that. How about Lexi then?
Lexi, I mean, we have a little bit more exposure to Lexi. Obviously, we had Denny on talk about his 9-0 Battle Hardened list. Obviously, putting up some results. He did say, if you did check out that video, feel free to check out that video if you haven't already for that list. But he did mention that he was like a Lexi main through and through. So it wasn't like he was looking to Dynasty and be like, I'm going to build the best deck. And look for like the best thing in the meta. The guy's a Lexi player, right? So you have to take that with a grain of salt. That there are going to be people that 9-0 or they win events because that's their pet deck, and he put out something that was very good. Gem helped, blah blah blah. So I wouldn't say like that one event is going to like skyrocket her to A tier or S tier, but I think the balance between lightning and ice is very interesting. It's very flexible, right? Very similar to like Dash, and where your flexibility gives way to new strategies into decks that may or may not have been good in previous strategies, right? So I think the lightning, I fail to see like if it can really go up to A tier being a ranger. And what I mean is like a bow is still a bow. Like you can still get fatigued, you can still draw awkward hands, you can still have
Yeah.
really really awful turns.
That's true.
If everything comes together, you can win an event, as Denny just showed.
I mean,
But
the
I think
results are there, right?
chances are it's not going to go as well for most people beating all those Guardian players and like
Right.
these
Yeah.
very difficult matches. I think you're good into aggro. I think Chilling Ice Fan is still a really good card. Ice is a very good thing. Red Arctic Incarceration is a hell of a card flipped. Just sitting there. I know, Yuki. You've talked about all these
Yeah.
cards before. I don't know if you've had different ideas.
No, I don't think much changes. I still think it's like the Oldhim matchup and the Dromai matchup are kind of problematic. Dromai less so than for Azalea, but then you have some. I think Lexi's a little bit less consistent and a little bit easier to disrupt. Like sometimes against the aggro decks, a lot of them are just playing CNC these days, and
Mhm.
Briar just goes CNC for 9 with a Bramble Spark and one
All right.
Arcane, and you kind of
Yeah.
just lose. It feels like you just
Yeah.
lose as soon as they do that once. You just fall over. So I think that while like Heatseeker and Drill Shot are really good in Lexi and are nice tools for her, I don't think it solves. It just doesn't really solve the problems Ranger is having, and I think that right now the metagame is so wide that it's really hard to like when I've liked bringing Lexi is when there's a very small number of heroes and you can really target them with all of your arrows.
Yeah.
And right now it's
Right.
the complete opposite of that, and it's just
Yeah.
not a great spot to be a ranger. It's okay, like you said, I think they can win events, but I think you're definitely not giving yourself the best odds if you're bringing them.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I think that's kind of how we categorize B tier. It's like these heroes can win events. It's very reasonable, but a lot of people bringing these decks might be their pet deck, or it might be a deck where they've just like have a ton of reps and they're relying on their comfort on the hero rather than its place in the meta. But
Makes sense.
Rangers do seem like they're aggro targeting decks, and nothing's really changed there.
All right, moving on to
Yeah.
Dromai.
Dromai. So I think there's like two Dromai lists running around right now. There's a more aggro version, which runs Footsteps, runs Cenopies, runs Rabble, Dust Up, Scars, all those kinds of more aggressive tools. And then there's the one that runs Mage Masters, Tomes, a lot of health gain, a lot of dragons. So there's a couple of lists running around, and I think they both have different places. They both have slightly different matchup styles depending on what their meta is. And both decks are fairly reasonable. I think the Mage Masters one is becoming more popular from what I can see, just because it has the ability to do things with Tome of Find Delves from the arsenal, and that's very, very strong when you're taking some damage to start off your turn with Tome. You can get out passing Mirage and then dragons after that. You are able to, solidify those plays as being more common rather than having to stack dragons, having to take a turn off. I think Dromai is also very Dynasty didn't really. Well, she got like 3 cards. She got like the dragon cards, like the dust of whatever, and the drag. You know what I mean? I don't know what those
Yeah.
those cards were called.
Yeah,
but
the dust. They all have
yeah,
they're all different
the
dusts.
dust cards, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And the dust cards, I don't think really do anything. I think the Viserai one's probably the best, just because
Yeah.
it turns into a 6-for-1 that you can't pop, and that thing does 3 arcane even if 1 damage comes across.
Yeah.
Which is pretty
Yeah.
good.
There's some like theoretical end games where you can get 2 of the dust and you have double Viserai, and then it's like if they're low enough they can't block it, but you have to get
Yeah.
there. So I'm not really
Yeah.
sold, but it's interesting, but I don't know. I'm not sure.
Right.
Yeah. I do think that build is pretty decent though. I think it's pretty real.
And
Does obviously very well into the Rangers as we've already mentioned. Pretty reasonable matchup.
yeah, and the other card I've heard people talking about is Crown of Dominion and
Royal
Dromai. I haven't played it enough, but I've heard that just like having the gold as a way to make 2 Ash reliably is really nice.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So it's interesting. I can't really speak to it personally though. I do kind of like Dromai's spot though, and I think she might be more like an A tier deck for me. And that might just be off the back of I think her having a pretty good dash matchup, and I'm expecting dash to be a big part of the meta. So I think just because I don't know that Dromai is that much stronger, barring like Crown of Dominion maybe being a little bit of an upgrade, but I think that the meta shifting towards dash a little bit probably favors her.
Yeah,
so
bump her up to A for now. I think.
Yeah.
Bottom of A.
Yeah, I
These
think
guys
he's
are
better
probably going to move a
that.
bit too, but I think for now it
Yeah, probably.
looks decent. Okay,
Yeah.
jumping into Rhinar next. Mr. Rhinar
Rhinar
himself.
is talk to me about Rhinar, Rob. You've had some Rhinar
Well,
experience.
I will say that the new Berserk build is fun, but not really viable in this meta. I will say that it's better in Defy. Okay, I've had some very good experiences in Defy
You go
with
fast.
the Berserk deck, and it does fill in that void where Rhinar typically cannot play against aggro. The Berserk build is kind of good. I would say maybe it's not advantageous. Like you're not winning the matchups, but at least you're a lot better into them. The downside is that you cannot play into ice, so you can't play into Iyslander or Oldhim that well, and which is funny because Reinhardt's typically good into those heroes. So I think the cards he got don't really lend to his strengths. They more cover his weaknesses, but they sacrifice his strengths in the process. So I don't think those cards did much for him for this meta specifically. But the traditional Rhinar build, I think we saw success recently. I forget exactly where he won.
The calling. The calling and
It was the calling.
right?
Yeah, that's it, right?
Chandler Toe.
Right, that was it. Yeah.
There was
So
also
Worlds. Yeah.
there was another. There were two Rhinars in that top 8, I think.
okay.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
like Chandler won, but there was also another Rhinar in top 8, which
Right.
was
Yeah, so neither of those builds ran the Berserk package, I'm pretty sure. So they're just utilizing
It was-
Rhinar's.
Yeah, it was pre-Dynasty, so they definitely weren't on Berserk. But
Oh, of course, yeah.
what do you think of the is it Savage Beatdown, the one that
The new
it's like a
3
for 12? Yeah.
the new Alpha Rampage.
Yeah,
What do
I
you
don't
think of that?
know. I don't know if I'd call it the new Alpha Rampage. It kind of does the same thing in a way. Because Alpha Rampage was a 9 with Intimidate, which you could kind of count that as 12 roughly, right? If you consider the card that you're intimidating blocks for 3. So it is better into decks that don't like blocking. So you're getting off the 12 damage as opposed to the 9. I think it's more of a parallel upgrade, or kind of like a parallel shift. I don't think it's a strict upgrade to Alpha Rampage, in my opinion.
I think the best card in Dynasty for Rhinar was Skullcrack. I think it was just it's just a better.
I think
6.
That card really allowed Rhinar to lend more into the draw discard mechanic. So the Wild Ride,
Wild Ride, yeah,
the Pulping Wild Ride, exactly. So it makes those cards more viable. It also makes the deck more aggressive just by virtue of running those cards. So the deck did shift a bit. Yeah, some strict upgrades in Rhinar for sure.
Yeah. I think it's good because like that one pitch is like with the extra resource you can just Savage Feast off 2 cards kind of thing when you have no pitch. So it can translate to 6 damage in Rhinar. It is possible.
The one resource is often what you need for that claw or like for that one extra 2 costed attack. So it is really good. It's a very good card.
Do we want to move Rhinar anywhere from high B tier? I'm kind of okay keeping him there. Even like his results his results in Dynasty haven't been that great, but we haven't had that many events in Dynasty. Yeah, with the Dynasty meta specific, which we don't even know what it is yet.
I feel like I don't know. I feel like Rhinar might be more like an A tier hero to me. Like he strikes me as like a step above the Rangers for sure. I think a step above Viserai, a step above Azalea, Kano. Like he's been doing decently for a while, and I think that he got like a few small upgrades. Like I don't think it completely changes the hero like we thought it might, but I do think he has a few upgrades and Savage Beatdown's interesting. Like off of a Blood Rush Bellow, it does lead to a really big turn.
14,
yeah. Like I did play against Rhinar when I was playing Iyslander, who just played like really defensively and then just tried to line up that Blood Rush Bellow into like Claw, or even just like 1 Claw and Savage Beatdown, and it hurt. It's a lot of damage.
19 damage.
2 intimidates. It's like, ooh.
Yeah,
it hurt. But did they win?
I think I lost one of the games into them and won 1 game.
Oh, there we go. It works for Iyslander.
Rhinar's interesting because he's pretty good into Dromai. He has all the poppers. He's quite good into Oldhim Iyslander, but he's really bad into Fi and Briar right now, which are kind of like a split of our S tier heroes. So he's like really good into part of it. He's good into dash as well. Well, I don't know anymore, but he traditionally was. So I think that he's interesting. I think A is fine. He might maybe above Dromai. I don't know if we can put him before or after. I'm considering higher because he's good into Dromai.
I like putting him like next to Dromai, but we can't really do that at the moment.
Yeah.
But he's like, I think he's kind of lateral there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, for me, Dromai and Rhinar are very similar.
Okay.
yeah,
They
they have their place. They can win events.
Yeah.
They've had strong showings in like Worlds and the events in Dynasty. But
Okay.
leading on to
Bravo.
Viserai is the last. No.
Sorry, I was going off of Rhinar. Yeah, Viserai. Yes.
The disrespect Rob gets to. I think Rob plays Viserai the most on the channel, if I recall. Rob plays a lot of Viserai on the channel, and Rob's just like, no respect.
Oh, poor Viserai.
Even when you revel, it's like, nah, it's not enough.
Nah.
So Viserai, like Runeblade didn't get shafted. I think Runeblade just didn't get nearly as much as he could have. Oh,
I think we're due for a mediocre Runeblade upgrade though, right? Because they've been just getting all the love.
Yeah, the Runeblade cards that came out were interesting, like Diabolic Ultimatum and like Cryptic Crossing.
The Majestics were.
Yeah, they are interesting cards. I think Deadly Duet was the only one that's seeing play right now.
Right.
In Viserai decks as like a strict upgrade to Spellblade Assault, essentially, or you just play both of them. You play Spellblade Assault and Deadly Duet, and if you could pitch non-attack and attack, like a red non-attack and another any attack, then you get +2 and the 2 rune chance, so it's a 2 for 8. But other than that, I don't think there's really anything crazy. See like Booker Eye running around, like some reincarnation of OTK Viserai running around. But I think a lot of the cards, like the Blessing card, like strictly worse than Read the Runes.
I think the Blessing's actually okay.
Not bad in that strategy. Like it's just another source of more rune chance, right?
Yeah, it's definitely worse than Read the Runes, but it's still
another source.
Another like pseudo Read the Runes, which is nice. It does enable that strategy to be pretty consistent and build quite a few rune chants. And I think that's sort of like what they're wanting to do against Iyslander, to not let them get so much Alluvian value. So I think that does help a little bit, but I agree. I don't think much has changed for Viserai. Like he's fine. He has a lot of okay matchups. He struggles quite a bit into Iyslander and isn't great into Oldhim, and probably is one of the slower aggro decks. So he's just like fine, but I don't know why you like. It just feels like there's not a great reason to play him.
Yeah.
When Briar LLs and you want to play Runeblade, you have to play Viserai, and that's probably what's going to end up being until you get a chain reprint, like a Shadow Runeblade.
Yeah, which I think was confirmed or something. I forget where I heard that. Might have been speculation, but I think a new one's coming out.
Yeah, probably to start replacing. I don't know if Viserai goes above Lexi. I'm actually kind of liking Lexi more than Viserai at the moment, but or maybe Azalea. I think he's still B tier, but I think he's like above Kano. I don't think I like Viserai over Lexi or Azalea, because Lexi and Azalea seem like they have points. Like I get it if you're bringing Lexi and Azalea as a meta call. If you're bringing Viserai, well, like what's the meta call? Who are you really dominating with Viserai? Is kind of what
it's a good
kind of what I'm curious about.
Yeah.
So I would personally put Viserai above Kano, but
I'm fine with that. I think.
No objections.
No objections for me.
Okay, so now we're on Bravo.
Okay, Bravo. All right, so I guess Eric, the resident Bravo main.
I don't know what you call it, resident Bravo. I do one deck tech and it goes way out of hand here, but
he's like your pet deck from way back in the crew days.
Yeah. He's still my pet deck. When I want to have fun and not think a lot, I play Bravo.
There you go.
I just have to like sit there, pitch stack, hammer, crippling sometimes.
I say not think a lot, but pitch stacking to me takes a lot of brain cells.
Bravo's an investment. I think Guardian is an investment for that matter. Like once you put enough time into learning how to pitch stack properly, how to manage your resources, how to block is a pretty big deal. The inherent value of your cards, it rewards you greatly, in my opinion, anyways. But
so previously we had him on A.
So A into Worlds, and I think most of what we were putting him on is like a strong all-rounder, which didn't have a ton of like bad matchups per se, but had a pretty reasonable matchup into Oldhim, which we were expecting to come out pretty heavily. Pretty decent versus Briar also. Like you can make a point that you could go toe to toe with Briar. And we were expecting a lot of those decks up good into Fi. Like that deck can crush Fi, literally. And it was a function of that. It was a function of the meta. And Iyslander was a bit kind of weird. It really depends on your deck at that point for Iyslander. But that was a function. The Guardian cards that we got in Dynasty, only like I think the only things that they're comparable to are the Runeblade cards we got in Dynasty as far as quality goes.
Right.
I think Shield Bash, like all the shield based cards, Savior, Season Savior.
Season Savior.
I think that's the shield.
Mm-hmm.
I understand what they're trying to do, similar to Runeblade, is try to provide a different path to build the deck.
Yeah.
Or it's just like an alternative thing. I don't think any of those cards are usable. Even Buckle is just like, how important is it to actually put -1 counters and destroy armor nowadays? I think that's a very slow man's game. And the issues, I don't think the meta's slow enough for that kind of thing. I think Buckle can see play. I think right now it's just worse Terra Sunder. And
I've heard that some people like playing it just to destroy like some of the key equipment in some matchups, but I agree that it's not.
I get it, but first
it's like a side grade.
Yeah, you'd have to put the -1 on it.
So you can play buckling blow with your buckle.
So we have like a whole different problem with the deck because now you have to add buckling blow, which wasn't a mainstay in the deck anyway.
Well, you can just play them as blues and then you just free roll. I don't know.
So as I was saying,
I don't think much changes.
No, as far as Bravo being an A
does he drop a bit, or do we still like his matchups into the top tier heroes?
I actually think he probably just stays in a lower tier of A tier. Like, I don't think he's in the middle of A tier. I think I'd prefer Rhinar and Dromai at the moment, but I don't think that means that Bravo is any worse.
Yeah.
He's still a very strong deck. Like, Dominant on Demand is surprisingly good. Very simple, very strong.
Thinking about Dash being more rampant these days, he historically struggled into Dash. I don't know if that affects the ranking at all.
It depends on how aggressive you make the Bravo deck. The more aggressive you make the Bravo deck, the better it does into Dash, because the traditional pistol plan doesn't have enough time because it starts leaking damage. You have to have very timely arsenals, like very timely D-Reacts in the arsenal to prevent the dominates. But if Bravo's running a remembrance to get those cards back, it gets really ugly. However, I think like the matchup's still very close, depending on the builds. So I prefer Rhinar and Dromai into Dash for sure, and that's kind of why I'm putting them above Bravo. But I think overall, you don't know if you're going to see a Dash at every tournament, or if your gem isn't going to give you a Dash. So you have to consider like all around potential.
I think it's pretty close to, as long as you're not like, I don't know, if they're on like the 12 D react Dash with all the life gain spells, then you're doomed. But I also don't think that deck beats very much besides Guardians. So
no, that is a Guardian killer deck.
Yeah,
fair enough. Gem blessed you to top 8 for only Guardians, and you get a lottery ticket. I don't know what to say to that.
All right, how about Dori?
Oh, Dori. I mean, Warrior got some cards.
Yeah,
I don't know if they matter.
I don't think so.
Like, I think Iron Song Pride is okay, but I still don't think it solves the Guardian matchup.
Yeah.
No.
I don't know.
I think that matchup's hard. I think Oldhim is hard. Bravo's just a skill matchup. I think Oldhim's hard regardless. To be fair, like, an Oldhim who hasn't played a lot against Dori is still going to struggle. I think Dori's biggest weakness is herself and the player.
Right.
If the person you're playing is very experienced in the matchup, it's going to be a tough game regardless, because they just, like, can figure out exactly what's worth blocking and what's worth not blocking, and can extract value out of that inherently, to the point where your reprise, which is your main ability, is just kind of not as strong as before, which is a little bit interesting that, like, in that Dori is just one of those heroes that is quote unquote punished for the other player knowing a lot about that hero, as far as place down cards, compared to other heroes. Right, compared to whether blocking is realistic or not. So I think the Battle Axe is not good. I think Cleave is funny. I've tried the Quicksilver Centauri build deck. It's troll. I'm sorry.
It's troll.
It just is.
Mm-hmm.
Dawnblade is good. Like you can get some super strong turns, and there are people who their pet deck is Dori, and they are good Dori players.
Yeah.
Like what was the guy top 32? Josh, the guy from the card guys.
Josh,
Josh Law.
yeah.
That's his pet deck. He did well with it.
Right.
He preys on people who don't know how to play into Dori, which is fair. That was a lot of people, and that's about it. But as far as like someone trying to like randomly pick a deck that's strong into the meta overall, I don't know if Dori's really it.
How do we like her in her current standing in A tier? Should she be below maybe a few of the other A decks, or is she still like top of the A list?
Is she B tier? I don't know. Like,
You're right.
I kind of want to put her in B tier. I think she was only A tier because of her strong matchup in Defy and Briar.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Yeah. Top
I'm-
B?
I think Dash is pretty close matchup, right? Traditionally.
Close match.
Yeah,
It
traditionally, yeah.
depends on like what dash build you're going. If you're on like Mechanoid build, I think that shits on Dori. Like,
Yeah, Mechanoid's almost unwinnable, I think. I think Pistol is like relatively close.
Yeah.
Pistol is close. It depends on how many D-Reacts you're running and how many like
Yeah.
if you're on Control Pistol package into Guardian, that will work super well into Dori also.
Yeah.
And Dori has no real on hits. So it's like she can't really stop you. Like you just block and you do your thing, right? But I think Dori in B is fine. I'm putting her like next to Lexi.
I agree. I think A was a bit bloated, so I think it's okay.
A was a bit bloated. Fair enough.
I want a
We're
nice
just a
distribution of heroes here.
You want statistical deviations.
All right. Moving on to, I guess, the star of most of our conversation was Dash.
Dash, the star of the show. Move aside,
Oh,
Bravo.
no. Dasho?
You were Dad show. Oh my god. No Dash show.
No Dash.
I'm gonna defer it to Yuki for this one. She's been on a Dash binge lately.
Nice.
So I'm gonna see. I mean, obviously, I've also been on a
We've
Dash
all dabbled a bit,
Yeah.
but
I feel like they've heard enough of my opinions after I'm playing
There
the
you
game, the deck text. Whereas Yuki, we all want your opinion.
I think Dash is really good right now. I'm not sure what the best build of Dash is, and I think that sort of remains to be seen. There's like, I think Hanabi Blaster is kind of a deck in and of itself. You really need to maximize that card and be making sure you're hitting 3 chain links as much as possible for that card to be good.
Yeah.
And you kind of have like not that much flexibility to sideboard out of it. So I'm not sold on that, but it is powerful and it's pretty good into like a lot of the aggro decks, I think. Or even some of the mid-range decks that aren't ice, but the ice decks are a problem for it.
Right.
On the other hand, you have Mechanoid, which kind of struggles a little bit into aggro, and I'm not sure about the Iyslander matchup with like getting rid of all your AV. Like it can work out, you can high octane them and just run them over, but you can also just get hypothermia or channel like frigided and then die pretty fast. So I think the best build will be some sort of like kind of mid-rangey build, maybe something along the lines of like Matt Rogers posted a list and I've been playing that and I think it's pretty good. Something similar to that can sort of play a variety of game plans and is just quite a classic Dash list. I think is really well positioned. And yeah, the only card that the deck really got was Pulse Wave Harpoon, but that just helps your aggro matchup so much. It's so incredibly disruptive. And I think the other thing about Pulse Wave is that because it's another 1-cost boost, it also helps max velocity. So it's not just the disruption, it's also it helping you cast max velocity. So between the two of them, like when they're trying not to block and then you Pulse Wave them, then max velocity them, it's like pretty brutal.
Pretty sad. Yeah. No,
You're doing like 20 damage with disruption. It's
yeah,
it's scary. So I'm a pretty big fan. I think that Dash is really good into kind of a lot of decks right now.
Jack of all
I think
trades.
Dromai is probably the main bad matchup.
Dromai's
Maybe
hard.
Briar if they tech really hard for you with like
Smash
Briar's always just like so good at playing random generic cards.
Yeah, it's true.
So they can play like Smashing Good Time. They can play what's that majestic Erase Face.
Erase
Face. I thought you were gonna say this round's on me, but yeah.
Yeah,
no,
Erase Face.
They can
good.
play that too. This round's
Blocks
on
for
me is
4.
pretty good against Dash. Works on
Yeah.
the Fistals.
It's true. Yeah. What do we think about her position in top of A?
Yeah, I don't have too much to add. I think the key to playing Dash or playing against Dash is knowing, like, because you're trying to figure out what build they're going to play into you, right? Because your sideboard is different. Like, think about if you're playing Ice and you're facing a boost Dash or more mid range versus you're playing Nitro Mechanoid, who's just going to sit there and like all those D-reacts you sided in aren't going to do anything until the Mechanoid comes out, right? They're just going to be clogging your hand, kind of thing. So siding into the dashes and knowing and having a game plan that hedges is going to be important into playing against Dash in the season. I think also probably the more successful one will be the mid-range decks. I've played. I mean, I just put out a Nitro Mechanoid deck tech. I know Alan has one that's different, sides it to control instead. There are builds there that people can use, and I don't think a lot of people have played against Nitro and really know how different it is, and so you could catch people off guard. Like, catching people off guard is very strong in Flesh and Blood. Is what history has told us. You play a surprise deck, you win. You win tournaments, you win game, you can win all kinds of things. So I do agree with Yuki in that. Dash strong, probably S tier.
Yeah,
I think so.
We can load her here for
she was already the top of A tier. I think Pulse Wave moves her to S tier. It just shores up her aggro matchups.
I'm looking. To... Oh, sorry,
and she wasn't far off for the longest time. Like, we saw her do well, and she top 8'd Leo. She won Calling Singapore, and that was kind of like the Prism Briar meta. So, like, even if she wasn't, I think ultimately people decided that she wasn't as good as Dash in that meta, or maybe even as good as Fi. But she wasn't off by like a huge margin. So I think even like don't underestimate the one card upgrade, especially when it's a card as good as Pulse Wave. I think it's exactly what she needed, and I think that it makes her. I don't know. Well, we'll have to see what happens with ProQuest, but I think she is one of the decks in contention for being like the best deck, I would say. Yeah.
Awesome.
True.
Okay, so we'll put her there for now, and then we'll see if other heroes fall below her. So how about Briar?
Yeah, Briar didn't get any upgrades. I mean, I don't think she needed any upgrades.
Hasn't really changed. No, I think
Briar
is okay.
No, well, Royal Briar. That's
sorry, of course. Yeah. We can talk.
I don't know if
Royal
it's
Briar
better or not, but it's
played Royal Briar.
it's definitely cool. I just played it.
It's literally just played it.
It's really fun. I love the ability just to get a free like non-attack action in play, and then to draw cards off of it too in the form of cash in. Right, it's really fun. It's like a really good burst turn. If you combine that with Channel Mounts, it's actually insane. It could be an extra like 9-12 damage on your turn. Or 9-14.
Yeah, we did like our gameplay, which will have come out already by the time this video comes out. It was against Oldhim, one of those classic kind of matchups. I was playing Rampart into it. I just felt like playing Rampart. I don't know. Right. And we were trying to figure out whether having Crown of Providence or rather whether having Cash-In was better, essentially, and like how much better were those channel turns. I think in that particular game, you rolled pretty average. Right. Like, your channel turns were pretty reasonable, like 20 damage turns. But we were looking at Cash-In to do 25 plus damage. Like, we were looking for it to explode by, like, you don't get a headpiece. Yeah. Like, this thing needs to do a lot. I think we calculated because you got all 3 channels out. One of the channels was out 3 turns. I
think 3 turns,
And, you kept it on with 3 turns, which was pretty good. But I think the turn where you did have the Cash-In, like, you did manage to do a Cash-In on a channel mount turn, was very similar in damage output as your non-Cash-In turns, and you're rolling very, very similarly on everything. Now, your highs are higher, which is fair, but Crown of Providence is a fantastic headpiece, and getting rid of that headpiece for maybe a better channel map turn, whereas Providence does a lot for you. It gets you a 5-card hand, it lets you recycle a card.
Also, your subsequent Cash-Ins are pretty poop. Like, you play the first one,
the rest of your Cash-Ins are 3 blocks off. 3 blocks off the embodiment.
Exactly. So, exactly.
I don't know if Royal Briar is better or it's just the latest craze, right?
It's just very interesting. Yeah.
It is interesting.
It makes you more bursty potentially. Like your ceiling does go higher with it. Which I don't know if that's what Briar needed that much. I think
no. She needs consistency is what she needs.
And then your
power level
trading off consistently for more burst.
Yeah, it's like I think it's kind of like there's an argument to be made that it could be in some ways consistency because you get to like you have more card velocity. So
Yeah.
that might help you see your cards.
Right.
I think I also don't know if it's better or not, but I'll say that I think what's interesting about it is that it's a 4 card package. You have the
Mm.
crown and the 3 cash-ins, or maybe even like crown and 2 cash-ins. I don't know.
Mm.
Um, and I don't think that much else in the deck needs to change. So I think that like for Briar, if you're a Briar player and you might already be doing this, but you should probably figure out what matchups does that package perform really well in,
Mm.
and is that worth putting into your deck? Because I don't think I'd be shocked if it becomes like you just never run Crown of Providence. Like there's some matchups where that card's really, really good, and I could
Yeah.
see just boarding that out. And so maybe that gives you some equity in like the right spots, but
Mm.
I don't know.
That's a good point.
I'm not sure.
Okay,
That's fair.
so what do we feel about her position to still be an S tier? Is she still like a top of the food chain hero?
Um, I think she's definitely still a very good hero.
I think
Yeah.
she's good. I don't know. She's either like bottom of S or she might even be A tier. I'm
Top
not
of A.
sure. I do think that she has some troubles in terms of the Iyslander matchup's really, really bad.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
And I think we saw that at Worlds as well. That
Yeah.
the Iyslander matchup is quite hard.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how she does into Dash. I'm not sure. The Guardians have always been like winnable but kind of close. Like I think Briar is okay, but I think
Yeah.
my take coming out of Worlds was that Fi was mostly the better choice,
Right.
and Briar was like maybe a close second. So I think we're going to see Briar do well and win events for sure. She's very powerful, but I
Yeah.
think Fi is a slightly better aggro deck, or maybe even Dash for that matter.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah, those
Yeah, I think
there's
top of A
there's
is
plenty of
what I was
races.
thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of races between Dash and
Yeah.
Briar, and
Briar.
the fact that Pulse Wave Harpoon real good at stopping them from bracing you,
Yep.
because you take out a 2 block for that could on a channel mount as a 7 attack. For
Exactly.
instance, right? Really hampers your race ability.
Or,
But
yeah.
yeah, I agree with top of A.
All
It
right.
seems pretty
Let's
reasonable.
move on to I guess the premier aggro deck, Fi. Is he still as good as he was? Did he get upgrades?
I
You didn't
don't.
get anything.
He
Blazing
got
Glory?
Yeah.
he got Blaze and Yori, but like you play it in the mirror match, so it's just like it's he kind of got like one less sideboard equipment is what he got because
Yeah.
assuming that this is worth running, like maybe Furnace is just better because you can break it up into 2 installments and
Mm,
Yeah.
you can block on hits. I don't know, but
Yeah.
if Blaze and Yori is what you want to be playing, it's like only for the mirror match, and then that's one
It's
less
kinda
sideboard
funny.
slot for everything else. So
yeah.
like I don't think it really helps him weirdly, even though it's a card.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I think he's still really good though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's fair. I don't think there's a better aggro deck at the moment as far as like the consistency of your high ceiling turns.
Yeah.
You're not relying on something like a channel mount. Yeah, obviously Art of War is Art of War, but I think you have like reasonably consistent non-brick hands, whereas
Yeah.
Briar bricks a lot more than Fi. And by bricks, I mean bricks. I don't mean like your hand doesn't do as much. I mean your hand does nothing. And I think
Yeah.
there's too many of those hands in Briar for my liking, honestly. It doesn't happen super often, but for my liking anyways. Whereas
Yeah.
Fi is like you consistently do double damage with 95% of your hands. Like, yeah, you have all blues, but a lot of your blues can end up doing a lot, especially if you're on like Mask of Momentum. You have a weapon that swings for 3 go again off of the second Draconic Link or anything like that. It's a lot easier to string that together, and you have
Yeah.
Mask of the Pouncing Links. It's a 6 power helmet.
Yeah.
Like, just look at it as a 6 power helmet for all intents and purposes.
Yeah, like
right?
in Fi, you're fine drawing like 4 attack action cards. In Briar, if you do that, you're pretty much screwed because nothing like
for non-attack,
there's
for
no go
non-attack
again in
or
Briar.
attack
I mean there is, but like it's harder. You can't get your embodiment of lightning out, right? So I think Fi has a lot more consistency.
Yeah, his matchups haven't really changed. I think he still struggles into probably mainly like the more aggressive Guardian decks. Still pound Fi into the sand, honestly.
Mm.
Stalagmite's stupid card. And that matchup is still pretty hard for Fi. I think Fi still does reasonably into Dash. I think it's very close.
Yeah.
But it really
I
depends
agree.
on if Dash gets Pulse Wave or if Fi gets Art of War first.
Mhm.
And the consistency of you drawing those early cards. I think if Fi had like double Art of Wars, like sorry, not double Art of War. Art of War turn 1 to like Art of War turn 2 to like a 5-card hand kind of thing. I think Fi will win. And
Yeah,
I think if Fi doesn't do
I
that,
think Fi can beat literally
so
anyone with that. Probably. Yeah.
I also think like Fi's matchup with Iyslander is pretty reasonable.
Mm.
Like,
Yeah,
you could
I
win that
agree.
matchup. It's
Yeah.
not that difficult. And
I think it might be slightly Fi favored.
yeah, slightly
Mhm.
favored, like 55-45, something along those
Yeah.
lines.
Yeah, I think that Iyslander can win, but she just
Oh,
needs cards to break her way, and if she misses those key disruption on Fi's big turns, you get buried. You can't. She can't really. She's too fair. She can't really come back from a 20 damage turn. It's
Right.
very unless it's like a 20 damage Lynx turn, then
Right.
yeah, you
yeah,
can come back
that's
from that.
but with Lynx you're probably 25 plus, and that just gets kind of gross. But
Mm.
Yeah,
I think Fi is should stay exactly where Fi is.
That's
I
fair.
don't really.
yeah. I think I agree.
I would put him
Okay.
next to Dash if we could, but we can't. So
Right.
we'll just leave him right there.
Okay. Moving on to Iyslander.
Did
Um,
Iyslander change Yuki? What happened with Iyslander?
Iyslander got no new tools. I think that she is largely the same. There's questions of like maybe Imperial Warhorn being potentially good in Oldhim against her, but I'm not sure. I think that Dash getting better does actually hurt her a little bit. It's not an unwinnable matchup, but it's not great. Dash is just so flexible with the way that she uses resources that your Frostbite tends to not get quite
mm,
as much value. And she can kind of just like boost into you, but still have her chamber and pistol, and you just can't really fatigue her. Like you have too many 2 blocks, you don't have a weapon to grind value in the late game. Like the
mm,
pistol will just kind of run you over. So you do kind of need to race, and it's tricky. Dash is really efficient, so I think that's a tough matchup. And I think Iyslander is still a top deck. I'm not sure. For me, it's really a toss up between Iyslander, Fi, and Dash. I think those
mhm.
are the 3 top decks. I don't know exactly how they stack up. Iyslander, it kind of comes down to how good Dash is, I think. If
Right.
Dash is truly like super dominant, I think Iyslander will probably be the bottom of S tier.
Right.
I think that if Dash kind of gets figured out and people are able to beat it and it's just a solid deck that doesn't see too much representation, then Iyslander is still probably top of the pack. So,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah.
I'm okay leaving her there. Either there or bottom of S tier. I think there's fine. I don't know if Eric, you have
Yeah.
any objections?
No, Iyslander still feels very like the Michael Hamilton kind of worlds ish list
Mm-hmm.
still feels like an all around solid list. I think it rewards, reps, just like
Yeah.
any
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
high flexibility tools. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
it's fine. I don't know. I don't know if it's above 5, but I think everyone in S is just kind of in S. I think like moving
Right.
them in between is kind of like depends on the tournament, and it depends on gem, and
Yeah.
depends on
I
a
think it's
lot of
good
different
there's no
things.
clear top deck, really.
Yeah.
That's probably
Yeah.
a
I think there
healthy,
We're
are.
just we're all
healthy
just
meta.
waiting for Chain to come back.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's true.
Okay.
So
So last
Yeah.
guy
I
we
think they're
got
all
old
is
man,
super close.
right. Okay,
yeah,
old man, the old man himself, old
old
him.
man, old man's great. I love old man.
Yeah. So
He got no new tools, thankfully. I mean,
yep.
if that deck got a new tool, I don't even like, really
Yeah.
didn't need anything. Still stupidly flexible, extremely
Mm-hmm.
strong deck in a whole bunch of different metas. He can be
Yeah.
aggressive. He can be control. He can hit you, then stop what you're doing the next turn. Like
Right.
nothing's really changed with his overall game plan. I think the more aggressive builds have been what has been popping up, especially worlds and post worlds. Like you're less so about being reactive, and you're more so about hitting for 8 plus damage a turn with an on hit, and trying to slow down, but not necessarily stop what your opponent's trying to do, depending on the matchup. I think that strategy will work fine in ProQuest. I still think he's one of the top decks going into ProQuest. His matchup into Fi is still good. His matchup
Yep.
into Iyslander is depending on the Iyslander build, I think, but he's pretty close to 50-50, depending on the player, depending on the build. You can
Right.
really do some unfair pummel things
Yep.
to a lot of
Yeah.
different decks.
Yep.
And well, I think Iyslander is probably still slightly favored. I still think it's a very good matchup into Iyslander, relatively speaking. And the matchup into Dash is good. I
Mm-hmm.
like Ultimate to Dash. I like that matchup. There is something to be said about like how many okay, not the. I forgot that weird dash build, the one the life gain Diri. I'm not talking about that
Frog.
dash.
The
Not about Tree Frog. Tree Frog dash. You're doomed,
21
I guess.
D-React type thing.
Yeah, you're just doomed if it's Tree Frog dash as Oldhim. But like mid range dash with like
Yeah.
6 to 8 D-Reacts, something along those lines, I think
Right.
Oldhim will be fine. You're favored. Just have a like moderately aggressive deck.
Yeah.
Oldhim is one of those decks that's also very good into fringe decks. So decks that are trying to target the meta, like Lexi and Azalea targeting aggro, and you slam down Oldhim, and you're automatically favored. Like you need to, you don't just win. It doesn't mean you're just gonna win every ranger you see. You still have to know the matchup. But Dori, Viserai, Kano, it kind of depends. The only matchup I don't really like very much is I don't like Rhinar. Winnable, I just don't like it. Dromai is a pain in the ass, massive pain in the ass. Goes to time a lot, depending on the experience of the players. Bravo, I think a lot of the Bravo builds are like favored into Oldhim. As far as if you get your pitch stack right and you're playing enough big boys, like Pulverizes and Righteous and stuff like that, you outvalue Oldhim unless Oldhim knows exactly what they're doing. And so it's a difficult matchup. I think I've gone through like most of the matchups.
Yeah.
I'm essentially trying to say like why he should just stay where he is.
Stay at the top of the food chain. Yeah.
I think he's
S, but yeah.
I think he's good. I think one of the things that we saw in Worlds is I think at the highest level he does come down just like a little bit. Like I think the really, really good Icelanders are quite tough for him to beat. And I think that your favored Fi matchup when you start seeing players like Dan Rutowski play Fi, it starts to look a lot closer. So I think that's some like Oldham's really good at putting a lot of pressure on his opponent to play really, really well. And if they don't, you're just going to clobber them. And if they do, you're still pretty solid, which is honestly probably perfect for like a ProQuest kind of deck. Because remember, like a Worlds metagame with the top players is going to be very different field than your ProQuest. And just because I think Icelander's a really good deck, like how many strong Icelanders are there that can really be super favored into Oldhim? There might not be any in your area. So I think like with all that in mind for ProQuest, I think Oldhim is quite good. I think like overall, like at a top level play, he's maybe like the bottom of S for me. But I think that in a ProQuest setting, he's probably like on par with the others.
Okay.
Yeah, and we are talking about like ProQuest Dynasty meta.
Yeah.
So that being, I do agree with like at the very, very top level. I do think Oldhim loses a bit of his edge. I think he's he's good, but he's not fantastic. But let's move on to Arakni. He's the last hero.
Let's not forget about this guy. Yeah, okay. So newest addition to Dynasty.
Yeah, he's C tier at the moment for me. His main issue is that it seems like fatigue is really what people have been using him. There's no reason to play him aggro. Like there just isn't a reason to play him aggro. He's just not an aggro deck. Like, it's just not.
He can't get go again outside of like he either needs to rely on Razor Reflex or his boots, which requires you to hit. And if you're an aggro deck and the only way you can spend your whole hand is by hoping that your opponent doesn't play around your attack reaction. It's just not a great strategy. You just lose too much value.
Yeah, and your like top end damage is just not very good. It's just your ceiling is not good for an aggro deck. And even as a fatigue deck, like he has some niche matchups where he can be good. Like I think he could be good into dash. I think you could win that matchup. I never say it's fun, but you could win that matchup. You can win against decks that like to use their deck a lot as a resource because you're constantly attacking it.
Yeah, I think he's pretty reasonably close, in my opinion, against like most of the mid-rangey decks that kind of want to play like a relatively fair game, except for Oldhim. I don't know how you ever beat Rampart and Crown and Earth React. That sounds kind of miserable. But outside of that, I think he's like very, very close against all the mid-rangey decks, but then he has like kind of a problem into the aggro decks because he doesn't have quite enough disruption and he doesn't have quite enough value to keep pace with them either. So you're just in this like weird spot where you can't really mill them, you can't really race them. It's pretty bad and it just feels like needs more support. I don't think he's actually that far off. Like even into Iyslander, like I don't think I think it is a bad matchup, but I don't think it's a bad matchup by much. Like I feel like as Iyslander, I was consistently beating Arakni, but it was by a relatively small margin. So that's to say that if you're an Arakni fan, I think that with outsiders coming, I wouldn't be surprised to see either Arakni or whatever new assassin we get to be pretty good.
Yeah, just gotta wait till PT3. Win your pro quest with something else, and then bring Arakni
Yeah.
to PT3. That's got to be the plan here. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I think C is pretty reasonable. I don't know if Yuki or Rob you feel differently.
I think it's fine.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Looking at this list, any changes? It looks pretty okay to me.
Yeah. I mean, I was looking at Arachne's placement in C. Do we think he's better or worse than Boltyn, or it's kind of just a mix-up?
It's whatever.
Yeah.
But
I
it's
don't
all
know.
it's all
Yeah.
whatever down there.
I think it's yeah.
Everyone's just chilling.
Yeah, they're all just watching. That's fair.
They're on the outside looking in here, but I think
It looks pretty
really
good
just
to me.
Dash moving to S and Briar moving to A is the big
Yeah.
change, I think.
I think so too. Yeah. Viserai moving down a bit in the tier list.
Yeah, still staying in the same. Everyone else is just still staying in their same bracket. They're just moving around a little bit, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Hopefully,
Looks good to me.
everyone enjoyed the tier list video. I know everyone enjoys these tier list videos. So if you don't, keep watching, and eventually you will also become a fan. And if you like this kind of content, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Appreciate Yuki giving us your time, attention, telling us
Thanks for having me.
what we should and shouldn't play. Just everyone just play Dash. Looks like everyone's problem is solved here. So with that being said, from wherever you're watching in the world, have a good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Bye for now.